I'm Danny, your resident storyteller and host of the Aid podcast, otherwise known as Authentically Inspiring with Danny. Welcome to a space where we talk about the good times, but we don't shy away from difficult, taboo topics either. The goal of this podcast is to provide aid and healing in the form of storytelling and share insight from our life experiences. This podcast isn't self-help, nor does it set out to necessarily teach you anything, but rather to share a story and hear your own. Perhaps you learn something along the way. Hello, folks. Today, I welcome you back for the grand finale of this series, and this episode is called Beating the Odds. We have our beginning of the episode routine to get through real quick, so let's jump into shoutouts. Welcome to our new YouTube subscriber, though admittedly the YouTube isn't really built out yet. I promise I'm trying to find time to work on that. It currently has all of my podcast episodes on it, and I'll have teaser content and blooper reels coming really soon. Thanks to everyone for joining us and sharing your precious time with me. I do deeply appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy this time as much as I do. Some of you joined us from Germany and Turkey, and I'm just in disbelief that this podcast reached outside of my state, let alone the country. We've also got a new patron who's joined our journey as well, so welcome, Chelsea. This is a narrative of my story and my experiences. Take what resonates and leave behind whatever doesn't. As a general reminder, we are here to tell stories so that people may find learnings and solace in them, not trauma. This episode has potential trigger tags for dental trauma and the hardships of poverty. There's also a very brief reference to an abusive outburst. Quick recap. In the last episode, I reflected on the unexpected turns my life took after a motorcycle accident that ultimately led me to the love of my life. I talked about the profound impact of societal pressures in going to college and the personal challenges on my journey. I emphasized the power of both fate and choice in shaping my path as I grew into the person I dreamed of becoming. In this series, you've heard me talk of the things I did to try and convince people to believe in me, to take a chance on me. I talked about where I came from, living a comfortable life with most every basic need taken care of, to losing it all and being in poverty. While I didn't talk about the food stamps or the shame I felt as a child when people would give you one of those looks, I still felt it. Some of the looks were pity. Pity that a child was having to use food stamps or wear clearly used clothing several sizes too big. Pity that I had to choose between the cereal I wanted or the diapers my baby brother needed. Some of the looks were curiosity about why my school lunch was free. Some of the looks were reproachful and judgmental, like it was somehow my fault as a child for being in this position. I then talked about overcoming the adversity in my motorcycle accident, and how life has a funny, albeit sometimes irritating, way of guiding us to where we are supposed to be. I know there are people who've had it harder than myself, but what I had to overcome was no small feat either. My growth as a person was hard-earned and fought for. There were times I didn't think I'd make it, and I wouldn't have in some cases without some help. But ultimately, it was never about other people believing in me. I realized that I wanted other people to believe in me so desperately because I believed in myself. I knew what I could do, who I could become. The only person who really needed to believe in me was myself. Now, I still need a reminder every now and again, but once I figured that part out, it was like parts of my life that had previously been hidden from me suddenly unlocked. Now, almost 20 years later, here I am. I grew up bouncing from home to home, couch to couch, or in some cases, a floor, a car, and under a bridge, to having owned 2 houses by age 30. I grew up being physically, emotionally, and verbally abused, to now prioritizing a focus on my mental health that I protect viciously with healthy boundaries. I grew up believing no one would ever love the real and true me, to finding my wife on the most unexpected road. I grew up never wanting to have kids for fear I would be just like my biological parents, to having the most beautiful and amazing twins that make my heart sing and my soul shine. I grew up with emotionally unavailable parental figures who parentified me, and not only to take care of myself, but my little brother, to having an incredibly supportive, chosen family. I grew up walking on eggshells, treading carefully around simple household tasks like folding laundry, sweeping, or washing dishes. Because when someone abusive does these simple things angrily, one wrong move means the dish is flying at your head, or the broom is now a weapon to beat your ass with. I'd quietly ask if I'd done something wrong, or if they were mad at me, which was a gamble in and of itself. But now I still sometimes ask if people are mad at me, if they're silent, or something accidentally slams. But I'm healing, which is an amazing feeling when I do catch myself not asking. I grew up with my bio parents having to choose between electricity, gas, or water getting turned off, to not, at present, having to worry about that. But I do wonder how long that will last, with rising prices and unchecked privatization of our basic human needs. I grew up with zero flexibility in a grocery list, to being able to have a nice treat or something added onto ours. I grew up having to hide where I lived from my friends because it was filthy, had broken windows with boards and trash bags over them, or it smelled like cigarette smoke, or one of the utilities was off, to building a home that my kids will want to be in, and their friends can have a safe space to come to if they need it. It may not always be tidy, but it will be clean and safe. I grew up wondering if we'd have enough money for food to eat, rationing whatever was left to make it stretch until the next set of food stamps arrived, to being able to ensure my children don't have to experience that. Admittedly, the rising corporate greed at the rate with which my children are growing does make me speculate about the future a little bit, but I've learned that I'll be able to handle it, whatever the situation. I recognize that not everyone has these things, and that breaks my heart, because I've been those people before. Hopefully, I can turn this podcast into something truly amazing, and I can start to give back to people more than I'm able to now. I recognize that I am fortunate, but I also won't undercut that part of my success has been because I am a stubborn and determined asshole who refuses to quit. There are so many other things that were considered a luxury to me, like dental care, filling up a gas tank in the car when we had one that worked, fresh milk and eggs, a dishwasher, junk food like chips and cookies, eating fast food or out at a restaurant. Fortunately, these things are no longer out of reach for me. But I feel an ache in my chest when I think about it, because I know there are far too many people out there who are living that life that I had all those years ago. I've always described poverty as something you have to literally escape from. And it's part of why I get so infuriated at the American government for trying to cut social programs like food stamps, because without them, I would have starved. Yes, my biological mother was a drug addict utilizing that program, but I was a child and I had no control over that. Did I truly not deserve to eat simply because the person who brought me into this world was making bad decisions? Seems harsh, if I'm being honest. The system overall failed me. I was not saved by Child Protective Services. They didn't care. I was semi-fortunate in my experience. Many others, too many, in fact, are not. The entire system is rigged against you if you're poor. It's designed to keep you trapped there. For example, when I was a child, we didn't have dental insurance. But, like many children, I had cavities. We went to a dental office that was designed for poor people, to give us treatment on payment plans. I had a cavity filled in my back molar, and remember feeling grateful to no longer be in pain. Flash forward 10 years later, and I'm eating a granola bar as an adult. I was beginning to make progress in my life, saving money up for the future I dreamed of. But I was still one life event away from disaster, wiping it all away. And seemingly like clockwork for this period of my life, disaster came knocking on my door. The soft granola bar was suddenly crunchy, and I was in severe pain. Confused and panicking, I ran into a bathroom, and that confusion turned to horror as I saw that what I'd spit out contained fragments of a tooth. $3,000 later, I had an emergency extraction. Why didn't you have dental insurance, Danny? You may be asking. I was young. No one had prepared me for adulthood, and I didn't know because I'd grown up without dental insurance in the first place. To me, I wasn't missing anything until I became aware that I needed it. I couldn't pay on a payment plan because you had to be financed for that, and I didn't have a good credit score because my shitty egg donor committed fraud and used my name and social security number to open a bunch of accounts when I was a child, which of course she did not pay. Like I said, the system is designed to keep you poor, even if it was a decade later. The health issues you cannot afford to prevent or mitigate in early stages become the things that will bankrupt you or bleed you dry of every spare quarter you have years later, even if you do manage to escape. So how did I do it? How did I escape poverty and the loud, obnoxious voices hell-bent on convincing me I was worthless? How did I grow into the person I am today? I wish it was a simple answer with a simple set of instructions. I want to tell you it was because I set forth with a determined effort to change it all, that I was vindictively motivated to prove everyone else wrong. And while that was definitely part of it, most of it occurred when I decided to change my mindset. When I stopped looking at myself through everyone else's eyes and circumstances and started looking through my own. When I decided to stop allowing myself to be a victim, and instead opted to take charge of my life and my choices. When I stopped carrying all of the baggage of my past and started my healing journey, which really took off when I began going to therapy. It happened when I told myself to stop thinking I was being punished by the universe or God or whatever, and when I started looking at all of those moments as growth opportunities. When I started asking myself when these disastrous life events happened, what am I meant to be learning right now? What is this trying to teach me? That was when things started changing for me. I firmly believe that changing the way I looked at myself, at the world, at my circumstances, that was the catalyst to put my life on the right path. That was the moment the seeds I'd spent my whole life planting began to finally grow. Coincidentally, or perhaps exactly as intended, I was sitting in a tree watching a sunset when this change in my mindset and attitude happened to me. I was also listening to You Get What You Give by New Radicals, which feels like it was a message just for me when I needed to hear it the most. Almost 20 years later, it's truly something to think about. My life now sometimes feels like a fairy tale, not too far off from a Cinderella story, and definitely a big upgrade from the couch and chlorine when I was 17. I've often been told that I am wise beyond my years, or that I am young at heart but with an old soul, which to me translates as, you're young, but oh wow, have you seen some shit? I want to share with you a poem, if you can call it that. It's more of a rambling of thoughts that I wrote when I was 17, so you can see a little bit of the perspective that I had on the world that emphasizes my old soul. It was inspired by my life and the pop culture of which I was raised on. Maybe you'll recognize some of the quotes weaved in. Here it is. Some things you can feel coming. Some things you expect to happen, and some things you'd never, ever expect in a million lifetimes you'd ever be lucky enough, or terribly cursed enough, to actually experience. Some things impact our lives in such a way that we'll never be the same again. Some things change us inside and out, for forever. Beauty. Some people show off their beauty because they want the world to see it. Others try to hide their beauty because they want the world to see something else. I want the world to see me. I want them to see that I am something else. I am not a pretty face. I'm not some drop-dead hottie that you chase to try and tame to be your own. I am wild and unstoppable, and the only reason you should be chasing me is to try and catch up with me. I don't want some celebrity. I don't want money. I want conversation. Communication. I want someone who can see the beauty in little things. I want someone who laughs about yesterday. I want someone who smiles when it rains. I want someone to cuddle with. I want someone who makes me feel alive. I want someone who runs by my side. I need real beauty. The kind of beauty that your eyes see when you look at a sunset or a sunrise. The kind you see when a life is born, when a life is lost. The beauty in a rainy day. The kind when you see a couple in love. Real love. Love. Tell me not to fall in love. Tell me how much more to life there is. You're born, programmed with what we're told is human nature, and then you die. Life is so very short, priceless and fleeting. Why do we hurt the ones we love the most when we know it's going to kill us inside later? Is it easier to be mad at the people you trust because you know that they'll always love you, no matter what? But then, what if they don't love you, and you were wrong the whole time you thought they did? If I say I love you, it constitutes me giving my life for yours at its very core, and it can be lost. If I say I'd do anything for the ones I love, I mean anything and everything. I'm proud that despite everything I've suffered, I can sometimes look at life in the most uncomplicated way. It makes me so sad that people who've lost everything can still be open to love, while those who've lost nothing are not. Love is my binding element. Love is recklessness in its prime. And there is no bigger risk worth taking than the risk you take by falling in love. Perseverance. The age-old adage of, if you think about giving up, remember why you held on for so long. If there's something you want, go for it. If you've lost something, find it. If you know there's something you cannot live without, don't. So many people stop short of making their dreams come true. One person who reads this can have their life changed forever. And that's one less person who is a quitter. One person who is part of a revolution. It's time to change the world, and you have to do it one step at a time. If you dream of being famous, go out there and try and make something happen. You will never know until you do so. Change the world through your dreams by not giving up on them. Chase your dreams until you collapse from overexertion. When you have the strength to get back up, start running again. Never let anyone or anything hold you down. Don't give it the power to. Don't be afraid of getting knocked back down. You can bet on the fact you will. Stand strong, stand up, and fight. Fear. I was lying on the grass one night with a friend when she asked me if I was scared of dying. I told her no, not of dying. It's more that I'm afraid of time and not having enough of it. Time to figure out who I'm supposed to be, to find my place in the world before I have to leave it. I'm afraid of what I'll miss. That's my greatest fear. The one that sits deep down inside my soul. Don't be afraid to feel. Feel pain, feel sorrow, feel love, feel life. Feel as much as you can. Don't be the person who locks it inside, because that's easier than you having to feel something. Feelings exist in balance. Find your balance. Find what makes you complete and whole. Find what makes you a better person and do it with purpose. Live. Be smart, but live life. Being happy isn't having everything in your life be perfect. It's all the little things, like a warm day on your skin when you thought you'd never feel again, or the breeze, or the smell of autumn, or a phone call or a message to a friend, or a simple "I love you." Even just a smile. Having someone to come home to. Coming up for air after being underwater. A loving touch. Waking up in a house full of people instead of being alone. Or maybe it is being alone. The rain on your skin. A first kiss. Seeing a butterfly. Driving down your favorite road. Inhaling your favorite scent. Dreaming. Your toes in the sand. That one song you just can't stop singing. Maybe it's about making those moments count for more than all the bad stuff. Maybe we just get through it, and that's all we can ever ask for. Perhaps you picked up on my big inspiration for these thoughts as a teen back then. But if you didn't, I had checked out a book from the library called Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants. That book provoked a lot of deep thought in myself that manifested as pen to paper when I was younger. But it's also how I saw the world. And it's a good reminder that I still see these things today, just with more life experience and wisdom sprinkled on top. I've always been a dreamer, with my head in the sky, despite, or maybe to spite, all of my astrological earth signs. But I learned with time what keeps me grounded, and embrace that part of myself too. That grounded energy is what helps me focus on the lessons life is trying to teach me. Helps me to see the beauty in the world and appreciate it, especially when things have been so dark the past few years. Speaking of life lessons, I saw something the other day that said women live to be on average about 79 years old. I've lived about half a lifetime. And with good fortune, I will hopefully have many, many more years to fulfill my dreams, make an impact, and truly live. I can take all these lessons I've learned so far in this life and move forward with the family I've chosen and the family I've built, the tools I've learned for coping and healing, and move into that life to build what I want. Let me share the lessons from this endeavor so maybe you can build on your life too. My therapist once told me that children of parents with abusive personalities that don't become abusers themselves tend to become highly sensitive, ethical, moral, and intuitive people because they dedicate their entire life to healing wounds that they never asked for. Hearing that changed parts of my brain that I didn't know need to be rewired. So I'm sharing that with you in hopes that it rewires your brain too. Not one single scar on my heart came from someone I deemed an enemy. They all came from someone who claimed to love me. So I'll tell you, love yourself, first and foremost. And if you can't, seek the help of someone who can help you focus on gaining that self-love. I've learned the critical importance of recognizing my own worth and persistently working towards my own goals, not someone else's, even when faced with significant challenges. My determination and strength of will is a powerful force that can and has changed my life's direction, and your determination and will can change yours too. Friends, family members, chosen or otherwise, so long as they're supportive, mentors, and the kind souls of strangers were critical for my survival. I didn't do all of this on my own, and learning when to ask for help and when to accept it is necessary to success in life. My early experiences in the environments I grew up in have shaped my perspective and decisions as an adult, both the good and the bad, and I cannot stress enough the importance of surrounding yourself with people who are different from you, or what is society's norm. Hearing their experiences changed my worldview, and it shaped it for the better. This part of my life taught me about the power of resilience and adaptability. Being able to bounce back from setbacks and adapt to new circumstances has been crucial in navigating the unpredictability of life. And it makes it a hell of a lot easier, too, when you can go into chaos and turmoil with a level head and a steady hand. Expect to have to change your course. Be pleasantly surprised if you don't. And before making any big decisions, always step back and take a breath first. Making my own choices, even when options seemed limited, empowered me significantly. Taking control of my decisions led to meaningful changes in my life's trajectory, reinforcing the belief that I have the power to alter my path, even if I'm moving to a specific destination. Happiness is something only you can determine for yourself. For me, rejecting societal pressures telling me to follow a conventional education and career path was how I found fulfillment and success. By forging my own way, I explored different facets of life and found what makes me happiest, and began doing it with a fervor. Most every decision I make is intentional on whether or not it will make me happy. And don't get me wrong, I still have to play by certain rules and such. But the decisions for my life, my happiness, I decide, and no one else. Don't take things for granted. I know that's hard, but complacency is a killer. Appreciate how far you've come, because that's hard to see sometimes. Forest for the trees and all that, but chances are you've come a lot farther than you think you have. There were many times I felt like I wasn't progressing fast enough or doing enough, but I had come a long way in reality. I couldn't see it because I was so absorbed in the present and trying desperately to get to the future. But I encourage you to reflect on where you've come from as well. You may just find some guidance and inspiration there. We all get swept away by the waves of life, but try to begin actively pausing your life for just a moment to enjoy the little things. Play that song on repeat. Stop to watch a bird sing a song, or a butterfly soaring back and forth in the wind. Pause to feel the wind, or smell the salt or earth in the air. I promise you'll feel better after you stop for just a mere moment to enjoy whatever brings you happiness. Stay tuned for next month's episode, and remember, it may not be fine right now, but it will be. Be safe out there, folks, and I'll see you next time for AID.